Hey guys, welcome back to Charlotte Mortgage Insights. Today's topic is about divorces and how divorces can impact your mortgage. And while you may not think that the divorce rate is all that high in this country, here are some statistics to show you that 41% of first marriages actually end up in a divorce, and 60 to 67% of marriages second marriages end up in divorce. And if you're curious, 70 to 73% of third marriages end up in divorce. And this is data from 2025. So I have Eric with us today, and he's going to talk to us because he sees this happen a lot, as you've seen those numbers. Eric, we're here to talk about how to navigate through a divorce if someone is trying to get a mortgage or if they currently own a home going through a divorce. So let's talk about the challenges that you see and what advice you can give our viewers if that is unfortunately the situation that they are in.
Yeah, I'll tell you, I mean, you look at the statistics, it rises, right? And unfortunately, we have this conversation several times a year. And it's so important that if you do own a home, that the lender's involved in the early stages. Once you meet with an attorney and you know that this isn't going to work out and a divorce is on the table, you own a home, you've got to reach out to a lender to start navigating those steps. It's so critical because there's a lot of things that's going to happen late in the divorce that you don't want to be stuck in a situation. And what I mean by that, if you wait and the divorce is final, a lot of times a judge is going to order a 60-day or 90-day to go ahead and get someone off the mortgage or to go ahead and sell the house. And we know in this current market, trying to sell a house in that amount of time frame is a tall order right now. But that also puts a lot of pressure on someone if they're trying to stay in the house. So there's a lot of different steps that you can take to get through that process.
All right, Eric, so what options do people have? Let's assume that someone wants to stay in the house. What does that look like?
Yeah, so it becomes pretty easy at that point. But again, those early stages are critical because what we need to determine is whoever's staying in the house, let's make sure that person can qualify to stay in the mortgage because, there could be dual incomes, that they've been comfortable with. Someone's making more than the other. There's some debts that their names are tied to. So we've got to make sure that we lay out a roadmap to clean some of that up. One of the most common mistakes that I see is someone work with an inexperienced lender. It's good for us because usually people will call us and say, hey, something doesn't feel right. This is what I'm working on. But what I get at that point is if you're going to stay in the home, let's look at a way to distribute that equity the correct way. A lot of times people will just jump and do a cash out refinance and try to give the cash proceeds to the ex-spouse. Well, a lot of times if you're doing a cash out, we can only lend on 80% of the loan to value there. So there's 20% of that equity that's just kind of hanging out. So one of the things that you can do is just do a rate and term refinance with distribution going to the ex-spouse of the equity. We can go all the way to 95%, and in some cases you can go 97%. That way it's a little cleaner.
Gotcha. Are there other options out there that you haven't touched on?
Yeah, I mean, you can obviously sell the home, and with today's market, right, we see months where it's hot and homes only stay on the market, 35 to 45 days. But there's other times that you got to be prepared for. That house may sit on the market for just a little bit. So I think it's very important if you're going through a divorce, get the mortgage cleaned up in the early part of that. Don't wait until the divorce is final. We can take a separation paperwork and start to divide assets that way and help you and partner with your attorney to make sure all of that's taken care of. Because if we wait, until the divorce is final, there's a lot of hurry up and not a lot of preparation goes into that.
Okay, Eric. So if the divorce is amicable, that's a great thing. Things get resolved and worked out. But what happens in a situation where maybe the divorce isn't amicable?
Yeah, that's where it gets really tricky and that's why it's so important to get on the front side of this in the early stages of the divorce, because some of the things that we have seen happen that take a long time to get cleaned up is what if the spouse that is leaving the home decides to not pay the mortgage payment anymore? Now, all of a sudden, when the divorce is final, both parties are going to have a tough time qualifying for a mortgage because their names are attached to mortgage rates which starts affecting the credit score, and that takes a long time to get cleaned up.
Yeah, I'm sure that you've seen a lot of challenging things with those situations. Now, let me ask you another question. Like, say the divorce happens and one of the spouses is getting alimony as part of the settlement, and that spouse wants to go out and purchase their own home, right? Versus renting. Are you able to use that alimony income right away, or is there a waiting period before you can count that as qualifiable income?
Yeah, typically there is a little bit of waiting period because it does need to season. I've seen it as early as 3 months, but we like to see at least 6 months of consistent income. That can be alimony, child support. One of the things that you want to make sure that is part of that roadmap is that both parties agree that that income will be consistent. What we don't want to see on the lending side is if child support is a big part of that income, it needs to be consistent, because if only half the payment was made in one of those months, then we can't use the full amount as qualifying income. We have to start looking at averages at that point, which could dictate, which size house that you're going to be moving into.
Gotcha. Okay. Hey guys, if you're getting any value out of this video, do us a favor, like the video and make sure you subscribe to the channel. And if you have specific questions for Eric about a divorce situation or just general mortgage questions, there's a link in the description below where you can reach out to him, schedule a Zoom call, get on his calendar, or whatever it is, just to be in touch with whatever you've got. But guys, we appreciate you watching the video. Hope you guys have a great day, and we'll catch you in the next one.